Hello and welcome to this video where I wanted to quickly talk about Warcraft logs. So maybe you've seen after certain raids, some people will share a link. If you click that link and it's for the vanilla.warcraftlogs.com reports, you will open a browser that will look like this. And so it's for several different versions of World of Warcraft. It's vanilla, Season of Discovery, Classic Fresh, Cataclysm, The War Within. For this one, the link is vanilla. I think you can see that from the link itself. Yeah. Well, yeah, it has vanilla in it. And then you can go here and you can actually look at a tremendous amount of details from the game. So let's say you want to look at everything. Um, Encounters are boss fights, and trash fights are everything that are not boss fights. So you can look at encounters and trash fights combined. That will be everything, basically. Or you can just look at the boss fights, or you can look at the individual boss fights. And you can also look at just the trash. So these are all the different splits you can do for the data. And then here you see an overview of the times you fought these different things, like when you fought these different mobs and when you fought this boss, Nefarian, for example. But let's say you want to look at the encounters. So this is all the boss fights. So it will automatically track who were tanks, who were DPS, and who were healers based on the abilities that they used during the fight. And so it will also show you damage done by person or by player, healing done, damage taken, which by abilities, so like the enemy's abilities, and it'll also show you deaths, so who died and when did they die. And for each of these, you can expand. So let's say you want to look more at the damage. So you can click here, damage done by source. And here you can see this is ranked from highest to lowest damage. And then you get to the point called parse. So this is something that a lot of people talk about. What was my parse? So every time there's a log is made, let's say for rogues, this is Blackwing Lair, that's this raid. Every time someone is logging Blackwing Lair and this gets reported to Warcraft logs, those entries are added to the database. And so what 80% means, it means that this is the 80th percentile for all the logs from, in this case, all DPS rogues. So all rogues doing DPS. So what does 80% mean? Well, it means that, that's the top 20%, or, out of 100, this is the 80th best damage. So a lot of people want, well, obviously you want, if you're doing damage, or if you're healing, you want your parse to be as high as possible and as close as possible to 100%. If you have a 100% parse, that means that you're in the top 100%. Right? That's the top percentile. And even within the top 100%, there are rankings, right? There are going to be several players, or really many players, that will have a 100 parse. And so there's a ranking within those that have a 100 parse as well. But anyway, that's the parse column. Here you just have the name of the players. Here you have the amount of damage that they did. If you hover over here, you can see the gear that they used during the run. And this is the level of the item. So 83 is the average item level of the character. Level percent, that is basically your parse relative to your gear. So it's a gear adjusted parse. This parse is just an absolute number based on all the logs from DPS rogues. Where does this damage, 641,700, uh, compare? And then active is just the percent uptime. So how out of 10, let's say a fight lasts 10 seconds, how many seconds of that fight are you actively engaged in that fight? That's what this tracked. And this is the DPS. So this will be the average DPS. So that's the total damage done divided by the uptime. And as you can see, when I hover over the active time, which is 82.95%, it shows a DPS of 973.3. So you can see that that's the DPS adjusted for the uptime. So if you only consider the time when you're active, what was the DPS? This number is just the absolute DPS, just the total damage divided by the time. Yeah. And that would be basically assuming 100% uptime. But here, you're adjusting the DPS up in case there was less activity. And so here there are a bunch of different things you can go to. You can go to the summary. That's where we start at the beginning. You can go to damage done, which is what we just looked at. You can go to damage taken. You can see who took the most damage during this raid. That was the player called Germelity. And unsurprisingly, this was a tank, right? It's not surprising to see that the tank took the most damage. And then these other players are also main tanks, second and third tanks. Then you can look at healing. And healing has the same as the damage. There's a parse, and the parse is based on the absolute amount of healing that was done. There's also an overheal metric, which means, let's say you're healing someone for 100, but they have taken no damage. All that will be overheal. So let's say you only healed people that didn't need to be healed. Your overheal would be 100%, which means none of the healing was useful. So that's how the overheal is calculated. So if the overheal is 50%, that means about half of the healing actually goes to increasing the health of the player. Now, this doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. In certain fights, it's important that all the healers throw their biggest heals on the tank. And that's going to lead to a lot of overhealing. So, you have to know the fights to understand if the metric is good or not. So that the players do not optimize for the wrong thing. Like, it's not necessarily, the goal is not to have the least amount of overheal. The goal is to finish the raid within, or achieve whatever objective that was set out. And it's the same thing here. You have your item level, or sorry, your parse adjusted for your item level. So this can be different than this number. So this is the absolute parse, and this is the parse adjusted for the gear. And again, you have the uptime, and you have an adjusted healing per second based on the uptime, the time that's active. So here it's 349.1 versus the absolute healing per second, which is 309.8. Then you have threat generation, and then you can look at the different bosses or ads, and you can see a graph over time as well. This is number of enemies, and this is time. And you can look at different places. So this is Germility, this is Arok, this is Arnie. So these are different mobs. And you can see the tanking time for these specific enemies, mobs for this player. Then we can look at buffs. So you can see it's a very detailed amount of information here. Major individual cooldown, damage buffs. You can look at debuffs. So that is debuffs given by enemies to players. You can see deaths. So who died and when. And you can also see like a wipe. If everyone died, it will be listed here, so you can see. As you can see, this raid didn't have any wipes. There were deaths, but no wipes. A wipe is when everyone dies. You can go to interrupts, and here there are no recorded interrupts. Look at dispels. So you can see that this is Tranquility Shot being dispelled by the hunters. So the boss is getting Frenzy, and the hunters are dispelling with Tranquility Shot. And you can also see the Brood Affliction blue. This is something Chromagus throws in Blackwing Lair. And you can see who dispelled. So you can see all this information. And then you can also filter for different mobs, bosses and mobs. And you can filter for abilities. Let's say you only want to look at Frenzy for Chromagus. And here you can see Tranquility Shot by the hunters. And you can go to resources. Again, more information. Casts. So there's way more to this than what I've shown right now. You can also look at individual players. Let's say you can go to Shadow Spike, for example. And for this individual player, you can get all the same stuff as well. So I can go to summary for this player. You can see the gear that they have. You can see their stats. Agility, intellect, strength, spirit, stamina. You can see their damage, which ability they use, healing that they did, damage they've taken, all that stuff. And that's just a summary. Then you can go to do the same for damage done, damage taken, healing, threat, buffs, debuffs, deaths, interrupts. And you can see Shadow Spike interrupted a fireball, for example, here. And here, interrupted a flame strike here. This sort of stuff. You see dispels. This is a warrior, didn't dispel anything. And again, look at resources. Doing damage with cleave, then receiving heal. This case was healed by 2 different healers, Manimal and 1 more. And then doing a heroic strike to this mob. So very, very detailed breakdown. And the same thing, the cast, which abilities that are being cast. You can see most of the abilities were actually heroic strike. 38.6% of all the abilities cast were heroic strike. So this was just kind of an overview of what the log can tell you. But as you can see, there's a wealth of information that is being captured by the logs and is available here. So that's what I wanted to show in this video. Hopefully this was helpful to someone. Thank you.